for the first women's hockey pod. Is it called Women's Hockey Pod?
For now.
I wouldn't know. Apparently, I'm not even wanted on this show. We're trying to find my
You probably name it
replacement
anything
already.
you wanted. It wouldn't matter.
Okay, this is the Women's Hockey Pod. On the first cold open, my question is, if someone told you had to eat one type of food for the rest of your life?
Are you talking like nationality of
Yes,
food?
yeah.
Okay, so
Type.
Italian, Chinese,
Mexican,
American. You know what? I'm going to go with Chinese. I think there's a wide variety of flavors, and I could not go the rest of my life without a cream cheese wonton. Or a crab rangoon.
Yeah, that might not be
Or
the
lo
healthiest
mein.
option.
Or
but
chow mein. Why would I go for health if I got to eat one thing
I know,
for the
I'm
rest of my
having
life?
such FOMO because...
Yeah, it's a lot of gluten, isn't
Does my
it?
celiac disease get factored in? Because...
Chinese food has like a lot of gluten.
Well,
so that's
there was a
outdated.
day. There was a day several years ago where I learned I would never have another cream cheese wonton. And if you are scared of it,
Are you trying to tell me there's
should be.
gluten in cream cheese wonton?
I'm
Yes.
telling you, there's gluten in those, which is why I would have probably chosen several nationalities' food that are full of gluten, but instead I choose Mexican.
Yeah,
So I can have
Mexican's
corn
an easy
chips,
one.
corn tortillas. Like spices are fantastic. Queso is so
Yeah.
versatile; you can put it on anything.
That's true,
Anything.
actually. Queso on a hot dog is fantastic.
Yeah.
I would pick Mexican too. It's got great variety.
Ooh, sautéed shrimpies.
I'm pretty sure every culture sautés shrimp.
That's why I threw it in.
Chinese sauteed shrimp.
You could probably just serve me sautéed shrimpies alone
for the rest of
my
your life. Do they have to be shrimpies and not shrimp?
Exclusive.
Damn it. What's going on, hockey fans? Peter from YHH here with a very special inaugural episode of what we're temporarily calling the Women's Hockey Pod, brought to you by Youth Hockey Hub, better known as YHH. It gives me great pleasure to introduce the star of our show and the reason you should listen to this Women's Hockey Pod more than any other in the universe, Miss Jocelyn Cookson. Kaylee, can we get a round of applause for Jossie Cookson?
I don't know if you can
You don't
hear
have a
it.
sound effect button for that?
That sounds like a hell yeah to you. No, it can't be the drum. It can't be.
That's
It
my
makes me
favorite
think
one.
Jossie's a
That's
joke.
the one that's got a button on it that says "Do not press" for when I'm producing.
Because that's your favorite sound effect?
Yes, I would use it often.
Well, that's great. We're off to a flying start. We know that Jossie's favorite sound effect
Clown
is the,
show.
Can we play it one more time? Play it one more time. Oh, man, that sounds good. Now we know it's serious time with the Women's Hockey Pod. So, Jossie, first of all, say hello to everybody. I want people to get used to hearing your voice.
Hello, everybody.
How do you feel having a microphone in front of you?
It's awkward.
You seem nervous.
Yeah, so like, I always had a face for radio and a voice for YouTube.
Well, that's too bad because
so-
there's 3 cameras looking right at you.
Exactly. So like, I mean, I'm excited to talk women's hockey but like being in a like a pod studio and like it seems very professional and I don't feel like I'm necessarily the people that people want to hear. So I'm just trying to be humble.
Why not? Why don't you think people want to talk to you or hear from you?
I mean, I don't know. It's probably some trauma from childhood or something.
Somebody's traumatized because of you specifically or just somebody named Jocelyn?
Oh, I mean, I think just
She's saying her personal trauma makes her think that people don't want to listen to her.
Oh, I thought you were saying that
Not
people
other
don't.
people's
I
trauma.
thought it was other
divulging any
people's
problem.
trauma.
Yeah, I'm like, this isn't the session where I start.
Jossie was actually the high school bully, so she's afraid that those people aren't going
You
to
would
listen.
believe that.
I feel like the dog in the meme where he's a nom and the choppers are flying over his head. You're bringing me back to some scary, scary memories here. But I want to highlight you, Jossie, because you are the star of the show because you have unimpeachable, I think that's a good word for it, an unimpeachable resume when it comes to women's hockey in the state of Minnesota. So let's go all the way back to the beginning of your hockey career in Edina. Did you start playing with the boys?
Well, yes, they didn't really differentiate between the programs. Back
What
then.
year
They're
was this?
This would have been like 1987.
1987. Bloomington Kennedy won the boys high school state championship that year.
Interesting tidbit.
Okay, let's go back to the late 80s.
So I think in Edina you had to be 5 to sign up for Mighty Mites. And so I anxiously awaited my 5th birthday, which turned out was like after that season. So I had to wait till I was 6.
Okay.
And so, yeah, in Edina, you just got slapped onto a team. We had team names like NHL team names. We were the Flames. We had purple jerseys. My dad was the coach. And actually, my dad had registered my sister and myself. So we were both on the team. So like 7 players, 3 of us were girls, but the only 3 in the district.
Oh, okay.
And we lost every game.
That's an encouraging start. It made you want to come back for more.
I didn't cry till the banquet. And they were handing out awards and things like that. And I just remember, like, at the end of the banquet thinking, like, so this is it? Like, there's no wins? You don't win anything? Like, the Kings, they got a bunch of wins. Where are our wins? So fortunately, the second year I came back and played, still trying to get some wins, and we got a few.
All right. When did you know you wanted to play hockey? You said you had to be 5 years old, but you didn't get to play till you were 6. That means you had to have known, like at daycare or in the crib, that someday you wanted to play hockey.
Well, my brother played. So my brother is like 4 years older, and he's like my idol. So
what's his name?
His name is David. And so he played, but my dad played in college. My dad grew up playing in Madison, Wisconsin. And so my dad was a hockey player, and that's what got my brother into it. Once my brother was in it, then naturally I also identified as a hockey player. So we grew up, I was born out in Minnetonka, and we lived on a bay on the lake. So as soon as I could fit into some sort of blade, I was already on the ice.
When did you first pick up a stick? Because there's a big some kids get started skating and decide, I like skating, and then you put a stick in their hands and they're like, oh God, never again. So at what point did you pick up a hockey stick and decide you actually wanted to play hockey?
Yeah, well, I think like we just had a stocked basement. Like, I mean, it was like our basement, it was like this big L-shaped basement, but like I remember my brother and his buddies were playing mini sticks when they were 5, so I'm like 1, right? Like as soon as I can remember, there was a hockey rink on the tile.
What I wouldn't give to see a 1-year-old Jossie Cookson stumble into the basement and just start hitting the boys with mini sticks. Knowing you as an adult, that seems like something you would have done.
Well, yeah. Hey, everybody, I'm here. Can you see me? Can you hear me?
Let me play, damn it.
Yeah. So yeah, I was just waiting until I could register for Mighty Mites, and we needed to. We moved to Edina for. Actually, my sister was gonna start school at Groves Academy, which is a school for kids with special needs, which at the time there weren't that many kids being diagnosed with special needs per se. So we moved to Edina so she could attend Groves.
Okay. So after Mighty Mites, what comes after Mighty Mites? Was it just regular Mites?
Yeah. So you have Mighty Mites and like 3 years of Mites, and then you just move into the regular. I mean, just like it is now. So now I think they call it termites and Mites. But so I just went through the whole Mite system through Edina. I remember I had a couple coaches that always picked me on their team, and that was awesome. My dad was always involved, and then I stuck with it through Pee Wee. So by then there's talk of girls hockey. Some of the other cities in the area were fielding teams, and there was some talk about it. And I, at that point, was bigger than the boys. A lot of boys hadn't grown yet going into Pee Wees, but I had. So I had a little advantage going into Pee Wees. But I also knew that I was going to be checking. So I had to kind of decide if I wanted to move over to girls, knowing how new and young the sport was, or play through Pee Wees with boys, which is what I chose to do.
Okay, you said there were a couple of coaches that always picked you for their teams.
Yeah.
Looking back on it, is that surprising to you? Did you face a lot of, well, she's a girl, she can't play with us, she can't be on our team? It sounds like you had some allies, though, which I don't think a lot of players from your era could say. Yeah,
I think there were definitely some people, and whether they liked my parents and I got the benefit of that, or they liked having a girl on the team, or maybe I was just fun. But there were certainly coaches that made me feel really included, and players that made me feel very included at a time where there weren't that many girls playing at all. But on the other side of that, there were equal or more that were pretty clear that for a girl to be out there taking a roster spot from a boy was unacceptable. I would go out on a limb and assume, based on your personality and the fact that you ended up as a Miss Hockey finalist and playing Division I, that only fanned the flames of competition within you and didn't exactly scare you away? No, I mean, I became pretty resilient because, Braemar was a pretty small place. So I was potentially going to run into people that weren't that happy about, and the thing is people did like me, and I had an older brother, and we were established in the community, and so it's tough to say. It's felt more like a ominous feeling more often than direct, bullying or anything like that. But the general consensus was there's not space, time, or resources for girls to play. And when I say roster spot, like I was making B teams. I was like competitive for A teams. And I think even if I would have been good enough to make an A team, that potentially this was a community that wouldn't have put me on an A team just so they didn't get the backlash, things like that. So I just learned to be resilient and I went to play hockey to have fun. Like it was like a, just outside of normal life, I can get skates on and just, refocus.
Zone in on
Yeah, zone in
ice.
on hockey. Zone in on something that makes me smile.
So you played Pee Wees with boys then?
Yep.
And then went right into high school?
Yeah, so my second year of Pee Wees was the same year that Edina had their first varsity team.
Okay, very cool. That was 97?
It had to be 97. And that was why that year was a tough one. It's like, do I play my second year of Pee Wees or do I go play on this inaugural, do I want to be part of this historical team roster or finish out the, my Pee Wee career with the boys, knowing I could maybe make an A team. They didn't have double A's in the 90s, so an A team was a pretty big deal. And I didn't make an A team, but I captained the B team. And so that was a big decision at that time to do, how do I want to pursue this girls hockey? And I was a little bit resentful of it at the time because it was putting me in a position where I was considered like a problem.
Where you personally were considered a problem?
Again, it was like a little bit perception, but yeah, I'm one of these players that's going to be on the team that's going to take the ice. So certainly from some angles, it felt like there was some direct, attack on me.
Interesting. I find it interesting that you weren't 100% gung-ho. I'm playing high school with the girls. I'm going. It sounds like you still had some loyalty to your male teammates that you had coming up.
Well, by the time, at that point, I had already watched an Olympic opening ceremonies that included warm-up outfits that I had to have.
You're talking about the outfits they wear when they walk into the... Oh, my God. What year was that?
That was probably like 88.
88?
Or like whatever. It was like the Summer Olympics. Like
it was Summer
in the
Olympics.
late 80s.
Summer Olympics 80.
There was some sort of like... You could probably find a picture of this uniform because you could probably pay $500 for it right now in a department store.
Research department. Please find the,
I had to have
the Team USA jumpsuit that...
It must have been like 88 Summer Olympics maybe. But like by the time I had seen that, I all of a sudden had a goal. Attainable or not, didn't matter. I was like a little, ADHD kid, and I was like, well, I'm going to have to get that uniform, that warm-up. So some of the decisions I was making at that point were like, what's going to get me where I want to be?
Okay. So a few years with Edina, you end up transferring to Bloomington Jefferson, which at that point was a powerhouse in girls hockey. I mean, they'd gone to state years before Jocelyn Cookson put on a blue uniform. What did transferring look like in the late 90s? Because I know what it looks like now. Obviously, I'm a part of the high school hockey ecosystem. What did it look like in the late 90s? Did you need a hardship waiver? Was there a lot of paperwork? Did you have to sit out a year? What did it look like?
Yeah, they didn't have a lot of rules around it. It wasn't happening too often. What we would see is like maybe kids coming into districts like Edina or associations like Edina from California or Colorado, things like that. Okay. It was rare. Transferring within districts or like to a neighboring district was really not that common. So there weren't like rules and things, but they were trying to establish some. So what I did is after spring break, my sophomore year, my parents had signed over guardianship to a family in Bloomington, and she is a good friend of mine. But that way I could start that fourth quarter of my 10th grade year in the district, which would eliminate any kind of hassle for open enrolling.
Interesting.
And if you don't have to open enroll, those aren't the ones. These ones are even better looking. I might have the wrong year. So if
Thanks,
you
Kayla.
Find a year within 2 of that one, and if they look really good, you'll know. Now I've lost my train of thought because
you were able to start the fourth quarter.
Okay, yeah. So there
school.
were some hoops you have to jump through if you were trying to open enroll.
Okay.
So once if you can finish a school year already registered with that district, you can start the school year like you've been there your whole life.
It carries over. You get grandfathered in, whatever terminology.
They started implementing rules for like sitting out or wait periods and stuff after me. So I'm one of the first of my kind.
Wow.
It actually became something that people talked about, like, oh, there's this option to move towns. When I wasn't the only one that did it that year. There was another girl that did it. We weren't recruited or anything like that, which is what the general consensus probably was, like, oh, these girls are being recruited by this coach to finally get above and beyond. We're playing against Darwitz and Wendell, and so we've got to have something special to try to get a championship. But we did it pretty seamlessly.
I would say so. You won the 2001 state championship. And now I read, full disclosure, I read Blades of Glory, the book that chronicled the 2000-2001 season for the Bloomington Jefferson boys program. So I know a little bit of the backstory with your state championship team, where there was some massive breakdown like midway through the season, and then the team completely pivoted with a new goaltender. Let's go back to the beginning of that year. Jefferson had gone to the state tournament, I think 3 or 4 years in a row up until that. Did you guys know that you had enough talent to go to a state tournament? Was it just a matter of figuring it out?
Yeah, I think actually we knew we had enough talent and we knew we had heart, but we had to face some rosters that were tough. Like Egan was in our conference, and so Natalie Darwitz is playing for Egan. So we knew that we had, we came into playoffs with like 7 losses that season out of 22 games. So we certainly didn't run the season like we were going to dominate in the state tournament, but we knew we had what we needed, and we were lacking in some positions. So that was making things tough. But we also we had a group of girls that were just a little bit fun loving and a little bit distracted by other life, and somehow we put it together.
As high schoolers are.
Yeah.
I mean, let's not forget you were teenagers at this point, so
Yeah.
it's not, I don't think it's necessarily a knock on your team that you were sociable and enjoyed your high school experience. I want to go back to that championship game. Blaine, you're going up against Jody Horak, who up to that point had like 16 shutouts and was headed to the U, considered one of the best goaltenders on the continent in her age group. What do you remember from the morning of that championship game? Because it always starts in the morning, right? You can't sleep the day before, so you're up before the sun and you're just kind of wandering around trying to fill the hours before game time. What do you remember?
Yeah,
about
well,
that?
we're hyped. We knew if we took second, we were okay with it. Jody Horak was that good. Blaine was that good. Marcy Bidlin coached Blaine, and she had been like elbow deep in every training program through the other 9 months of the year for all the top girls in the region for years before that. Like we knew we were up against, Goliath. So we were just fun loving. I think that partly for us, like we let the ability to not take anything overly serious helped us stay, gelled as a team and let some heart and passion get us through, because like we knew that we had trained as hard as we could train. We knew it was like Jody Horak had 16 shutouts. So even goal scorers were like, well, might not be my day today. And we knew that. So we were kind of going in, just really, whatever happens, happens.
Carefree.
Yeah.
And there is a certain confidence that comes playing when you play just thinking, whatever happens, we're going to give it our best shot, instead of maybe expecting to beat somebody.
We lost to Blaine in the holiday Super Rink tournament. I don't remember what they called it at the time. But there was some tournament we played up at the Super Rink, and we had lost to Blaine in a huge game, maybe the championship. So we came in a little bit, like we were fired up and excited, like we wanted to win. Our boys were playing in the semifinals of their section tournament that day.
Yeah, I remember that from the book.
Yeah. So like I said, we were thinking about all sorts of stuff.
Could a book like Blades of Glory be written in 2024?
No, I think with social media, like people are much more conscientious of their, reputation. I think people are less likely to kind of expose their true self.
Coaches are also a little more paranoid, maybe. They
Well,
might
yeah,
not
there's
want an
just so
author
many
hanging
picketing
around.
people out there these days that it's just, you really do have to be cautious about what you're putting out there.
All right. The book's by John Rosengren, if everybody wants to look at half-price books or a used bookstore for a 25-year-old copy of that. Alrighty, after the season, you were an all-state selection, a Miss Hockey finalist. Who was knocking on your door trying to recruit you?
Okay, at the time, I think with Title IX, I don't even know what Title IX was at the time, but I knew that I could pretty much pick which college I wanted to go to, which was pretty cool. I would say there probably wasn't a school that wasn't recruiting me.
Okay.
So that was pretty fun. But I picked right away I wanted to be out east. I knew I wanted to be out east for some reason. And then after doing some official visits and things like that, it was like, okay, I want to be a little closer to home. And the U had already kind of filled their freshman class by the time I had committed to the U. But I wasn't that interested in the U, to be honest. Even growing up a Gopher men's hockey fan, I think that the Badgers were so appealing because all my grandparents, aunts and uncles, cousins, I spent half my life in Madison just visiting family, and
It still kind of felt like home.
it felt like home. It was home away from home, so I could have some supports and I could also be away from the rules and regulations of my parents.
If there was a school that finished second in your recruiting, which one was it?
Okay, I really wanted to go to Brown.
Brown.
Brown would have been my
Okay.
first choice, but Digit Murphy was coaching Brown. She was so good. I think she was an Olympic,
Legend.
yeah. She wanted me to do a 13th year, which was like unfathomable to me.
Unfathomable.
Yeah, like get me out on the big show.
I'm done with this school stuff.
Yeah, I didn't want to be. Yeah, I didn't want to be at school at all. I mean, unfortunately for girls at the time, like there were no hockey opportunities if school weren't your top priority. And for me, it really wasn't. But Digit wanted me to do another year of not college, and I was like, no,
Yeah.
thank you.
I'm out. I'm going to go to Madison. Anyway.
Yeah, they're gonna let me play over there. Well, it turns out I probably would have benefited from 2 extra years.
I don't know. As a freshman, you scored with 59 seconds left in regulation to force a tie with UConn. I mean, that proves that I think you were right. Digit Murphy was wrong.
Yeah, my hockey ability was not the concern. It was like my focus, discipline, time management. I was notorious because I am fun loving, but school was just not only not a priority, but like I didn't have all the skills and tools and resources I needed to do well in school.
Okay.
I had the aptitude, but also the ADHD or whatever.
Whatever it is.
The reason. So school was not a priority. I would have loved to have a chance to go play juniors or go play, overseas. And
Yeah. There's a little growing up that comes along with going to play juniors. You're on your own for the first time. You get used to maybe not having mom and dad on your case all the time, making sure you do these things that you're supposed to do. So that's a good point. If there were female juniors, I think a lot of players would benefit.
I could have used some maturing. I eventually got a degree, but I mean, through several colleges and years and lots of ineligibility in college due to not going to class, things like that. Yeah. So.
Well, after Madison, you had a pretty good career with Augsburg. I mean, 29 points in your first season with the Augies in 24 games played. You find yourself a 3-time MIAC Women's Hockey Player of the Week.
Boom.
A 4-goal weekend in a series split against Newman College, you superstar. Tell me a little bit about the transition between Madison to Augsburg, because you're going from a Big Ten power in terms of what is the – it's not a commissioner's cup, but there's like an award that goes to athletic departments that have excellence across all sports or something. You're going from a place where that is expected to little old Augsburg.
Aggie Tech. Okay, so like at Madison, I think of the 4 semesters that I was playing hockey, I was only eligible to play hockey 2 of them.
Okay.
And then I took a year off. So after my sophomore year, I'm like, okay, well, I'm obviously not taking this too seriously. Like, I need to get my stuff together. So I moved home and took a year off, like partying and being crazy, try to get myself together, like try to prove I can take on the big world. And after a year, I thought I had everything I needed. And so then I went into Jill Patilla's office one day and said, do you have any spots on your roster? When she laughed, like, why? No, you don't just get to walk into hockey.
Yeah. Assume I get to play. Yeah.
And so I said, well, how about this? I was like, if anything like changes, let me know. And I like left her my number and she came like barreling out of the building to the parking lot, like, come back. Turns out there's a spot. Because I literally like parked my car on the one way at Augsburg, and like I was like bored one day, like I kind of want to play hockey again, and I walked into her office, and anyway, so that was the start of getting back. I was like, I don't want to run out of eligibility, but at that point it's year 3, so I took a year off. Right, I didn't redshirt, I didn't go sit on a roster somewhere, I just didn't play. So I wanted to make sure I could use all my eligibility. So again, kind of an impulse decision versus like what's going to be the best choice for if I want to make it to a national team or if I want to make it to further than this. So anyway, I wanted to get back in the game, and signing up for Augsburg seemed like an expensive way to do that.
Well, it's funny because, like you said, you didn't cast out a feeler to see like who might be interested, who's got a spot. You walked into, who's the coach's name?
It was Jill Patilla.
You walked into Jill Patilla's office and said, "Hey, I want to play."
Yeah,
just kind of thought, okay, they'll give me a spot. This is great.
Yeah, like, so what time is the first practice?
This is D3. I'm coming from Madison.
Well, that was, I mean, I did have a little bit of an ego because because I score points. I mean, I get points, right? I guess I feel influential in games, and so I did feel like if there were a D3 school, and I went to D3 because I knew that the commitment level would be lower, and the at that point I didn't even know if I was desirable. I mean, I've eligibility for 2 semesters out of 4, and I'm kind of a liability.
Oh.
I mean, people loved having me in the locker room, but
Yeah, but keeping an eye on you might have been
it was tough.
a bit of a headache.
Well, actually, so at Wisconsin, like I had teammates that were keeping an eye on me. So there were like 7 teammates that had agreed to keep an eye on me. Well,
you had handlers.
Each handler was like, she's kind of fun. Like on the nights they were responsible for keeping an eye on me, they were like, let's go have some fun. Like
my
go out
gosh.
and have some fun. Everybody, there were like 5 people that were trusted by my coach to keep an eye on me, who all were like taking advantage of like a fun one-on-one hangout. And I had like 5 nights a week where I was like entertaining my senior captains. Like
we won't point anyone else's name out there. We're not going to throw anyone under the
turns out the
bus
plan didn't work.
for letting the prize recruit run around State
It did
Street.
not work.
Did you get hurt during the 05-06 season?
What happened in 05-06?
Because I got you pegged at 15 games played.
I wasn't eligible.
Okay.
But I did get a captain on my jersey once I became eligible again.
Well, it's a testament to your hard work.
It was. It's my
battling back.
third or fourth consecutive season with an ineligible half of my season. But I still showed up every day. I still brought the same energy, attitude. I mean, all of it. Like hockey was still my outlet, no matter what way you look at it. I'm not a medicated ADHD kid. I have hockey. So whether or not I could go score and show the fans how good I was at hockey, I was still going to show up and I was still going to be a leader. And in 06, I mean, I was 22 or 3. I mean, I'm old. So some of these girls on the team are 17, 18 still, or 18. So I knew I had a role to play in spite of not being able to stack stats.
I think if you polled 100 youth hockey players and you asked, do you love hockey? I think they would all say that they do. But if you polled youth players, they don't really understand what love is. And it sounds, when you get a little bit older, you truly learn what loving hockey means. It sounds like you truly loved it.
Yeah, I mean, I still do. I literally
It's
still
a
do.
piece
Like,
of it.
yeah, it's my identity. So then there were like times in my life where I try to like shove it away, like I'm somebody else, or what, like let me go and navigate this other area of the world that I've never, like, that I've never checked out before, and like, turn right, slowly walk out, like, get me back to the rink, because it really is like my identity.
What would happen to you if hockey just kind of went away?
Well, I would just try to replace it with something, and then I would get bored.
Okay. It wouldn't send you into a spiraling depression.
Well, so that happened a couple of times, because like the final time you ever do put on like a formal uniform and then take it off and like you're coming out of that locker room, like nobody's ever washing your socks again. Like nobody's ever going to show you where your dinner is, or like you really are like, now what? And like everything that ever mattered about me was back in that locker room, and now I'm nobody. Which isn't true, but that's kind of what you're thinking. So yeah, you go into a spiral. I think that was my last year at Augsburg. The reason I left Augsburg was because for like 8 weeks after my senior season, I didn't do anything at all.
Well, I appreciate you sharing. I get curious about this stuff because I think that it's really hard for athletes to walk away from something, and especially at that age, even in your early 20s, you don't really know why it hurts so much. Mm-hmm. And you get a little older and you're like, okay, that's why. It's because I tied so much of my own personal worth to what I was doing while I was wearing that uniform.
Right. Well, that's the thing. Like when you're kind of like when you're at an elite level, and like the Star Tribune and Pioneer Press were loving covering girls hockey. So it's like literally in the newspaper, like all the time, and like all the neighbors. I mean, just like you go places, people like act like you're kind of a celebrity. It's like, it is an awkward position for a young human who doesn't have that many emotional like skills and tools to like navigate, but you can get out of all sorts of accountability in the world when you're producing. So it's like, you do get to a point where like, I have no laurels to rest on right now because my season's over. I have nowhere to go. If I had been, doing all the right things, quote unquote, like maybe like then you're sitting there going like, what regrets do I have right now? What did I do wrong? What could I have changed? So there's a tough introspective period there for sure.
Let's move on to maybe a little
Totally.
a happier
Look
talk.
at me now. No.
Happier topic here. You've coached several levels in the Edina Hockey Association.
Yep.
What inspired you to be a coach? Was it just a natural progression from I'm done playing, now it's time to get back on the bench in a different role?
No, actually. So for that year in between schools, I did get involved in the Mite girls program in Edina for a little bit. That was really cool. The
high school program?
No, the Mite program in Edina.
Mite program,
So
okay.
so like the Saturday, Sunday morning type deal with the little kids. So,
Yeah.
so I got involved doing that. So that year that I took between colleges, I didn't have any alcohol or anything like that. Like I was proud of myself that I was staying focused. And so I was filling my time with really cool stuff. So I got to be one of the coaches. And like that was not something that was in my wheelhouse. I'd never think of that. All my time was hockey. I didn't have time to do anything else. So to have free time and be like, how am I going to spend it? Felt great to be able to give back at some point. This is my first like experience volunteering. So anyway, that was my first coaching experience, and then I didn't come back around until my kids were registered.
Oh, okay. So it wasn't.
Well, again, like this ties back to this, like, well, I'm no expert. Nobody wants to hear from me. Nobody, like, you know what I mean? Like this, like insecurity that I wave around all over. Like, I didn't think and it wasn't until I got into coaching because of my kids that I was like, this is the best feeling ever. I just love it.
It feels like coaches can fit into two buckets sometimes, especially at the youth level. You have your teachers who genuinely enjoy teaching little things, and then you have your winners, people that are searching for the high of victory but have aged out of the program. Would you say you're more of a teacher or a winner? And I don't mean to disparage winners because
No.
you know what, they exist.
Yeah, no, I don't coach for me at all. There's no component of coaching. I mean, there's very little that's like just providing me with, my needs. But I just love helping people and relating with people. And when you can tie it all around hockey, and that's somewhere that it turns out I do have some knowledge in, I just, then it's kind of nice because it makes it easy. Makes it easy to participate.
So if I handed you like a 10 UB2 team of players that had never skated before, you'd be happy as a pig in, I was going to say shit, but I guess I can say shit.
Yeah.
You'd be happy as a pig in shit.
So that happened to me. And I have a 5-minute video that I'd be happy to text you after this that I made.
A 5-minute what?
It's a postseason video.
An instructional video?
Nope. It was like a love letter to my team, and I had like 8 girls who had never played. I had 19 people on my roster. We didn't win a lot of games, but we did win the toilet bowl game in the district tournament, and we celebrated that like we had won the state championship. Like those girls were excited to win that 7th place spot as my high school girls were when we won the state championship. I swear to God.
That's the coolest thing I've ever heard.
So
I think that's wonderful.
Actually, I'm going to coach a B team this year.
Are you really? In the Edina program?
Of course.
Boo.
Yeah, I don't care the level of player. I coach women's development clinics all summer long, and I don't need the glory of getting the best kid to the highest peak. I want to help kids find identity in hockey in a place that they feel good and comfortable. You know what I mean? Like hockey's saved my life 100 times.
Everybody pause for emotion.
Clip that.
Caught in the throat. Yes, clip it, Kayla.
Why do you think I'm typing on my computer? Okay.
Just keep typing. All right, so we've gone through your bona fides. You're a state champ. You're a Miss Hockey finalist. You played Division I. You played Division III. You're heavily involved in WHAM, Women's Hockey Association of Minnesota.
Yep.
Wow, look at me knowing
Look at you.
my
I just got
acronyms.
myself on the board.
And now you find yourself with a microphone in your face, headphones on. They're probably starting to itch at this point because we've been on for about, they're very warm. They're very warm. They turn your ears into the Florida Everglades in the summer. What is your biggest dream for our women's hockey pod? What do you hope to explore? What do you hope to impress upon people?
That's a challenging question. Like we've been thinking about that for a while now. It's such a broad topic. It's just ocean blue waters that haven't really been tapped into. So, personally, I'd love to grow fanship. I would love to convert more, self-proclaimed hockey fans, but we'll call them men's hockey fans, into hockey fans. Just because I feel like I told you, that kind of like ominous feeling that I experienced about like judgment against girls hockey that I think is still prevalent. And I think there's a lot more of like virtue signaling, like, oh no, we all love girls hockey and supporting girls hockey. But not when you watch 3,500 people walk out of Braemar the second the girls' game comes on, right? Like the actual practice coming from the same people who claim to love women's hockey, love girls' hockey, or support girls' hockey or women's hockey. Like you're not seeing that because they still have some sort of maybe just mindset about the game. So if anything, shedding more light on the areas of the game that differentiate it in hockey among the two genders, but helping people just identify it as still like great hockey.
Yeah, I think that's a really good example. You brought up Braemar in reference to the Beauty League, where people would watch the first two men's games, and then all of a sudden they're all walking out of the building when the women come on the ice. You're talking about holding on to those people who do claim to love women's hockey. You see it all the time on social media.
They're
We
wearing
love
frost
women's hockey.
shirts,
But then they don't go to a game.
Yeah.
Or
Right.
they go to one and then they don't go
They're
to
not
another.
streaming it. I mean, they're gonna go watch. They're literally gonna go watch like the Panthers play the Lightning on ESPN Plus instead of switching over to YouTube and watching the women Frost team.
Right. Well, I can promise you I will be at a few Frost games this year. My wife has made me promise that we will get one of the ticket packages. So, honey, I promise I will get that done as soon as I figure out.
Wait, how many pods did he mention the wife on?
I was just.
This is one.
It felt like
is one.
such a moment.
High five.
He said
Can
my
we
wife.
my
can you
wife?
say why we're saying that?
It was just like fun. It was like, oh, like I wasn't used to that.
This is his first pod recorded of all time where he got to mention a wife.
Well, it's my second one because we did 10 minutes of Tony
That's
Scott
what I mean.
earlier.
How many pods?
But you
so
didn't
already
mention it.
I did not mention my
That's
wife
what I'm
on the
saying.
first one.
This
So
was the
this is
inaugural
momentous.
women's hockey pod announces his marriage.
And I'm so honored to do it in front of two people that I value so much at this company.
Oh my
The
God!
Good for
only two
me.
people you value at this company. Just
Well,
kidding.
I got to value Sharon because she signs the checks.
Most important person
Sharon's
here.
the most important. Alrighty, let's end on a fun question here.
Okay.
If you had a dream interview for the Women's Hockey Pod, anybody, could be Billie Jean King, could be Mark Walter, the guy who basically bankrolled the PWHL. It could be Brianna Decker. It could be Tony Scott, our boss. Who would it be?
Who would it be?
Please don't pick Tony Scott.
No,
Okay, thank you.
no. I'm sure we'll get him anyway, though. Well, here's the deal. I do intend to interview many people.
Yeah.
When you say dream interview, there's like so many ways that an interview could be a dream interview.
Like
But-
how?
Well, like, is it just somebody that's an idol of mine? Is it somebody with a great story and background? Is it somebody who's hating women's hockey that I can help convert? Is it somebody that I just agree with, but they're funny, so we might make a funny episode? Like, so as far as what would make it a great interview, there's a lot of things. But I think, to me, I'm hoping to interview people who maybe do have a little bit of an opposing view, or maybe they're more open that women's hockey is clearly like not as good as men's for these reasons, and just hear more. Or people who have a lot of questions who maybe get shut down by a lot of gatekeepers. I think it's hard to break into the women's hockey fanship world because the established fanship sometimes want it for themselves forever.
It's a little hardcore on that side of the women's hockey fan club.
Yeah.
But I appreciate that sentiment, and I think based on your determination and your doggedness, you're going to get whoever you want. You're an evangelist.
Yeah, if you see my cell phone number on your cell phones, pick up.
We'll get you
Are
set
they
up with
supposed to just know it's your phone number?
just assume it.
Just
what's
assume
your area code?
any number is Jocelyn.
Yeah, it could be.
Are you a 952?
I am.
Oh, God.
But I actually was able to go into my what's that, like my Apple, and I put in this little swimming bear guy, and now when I call people, my name comes across, so you can see that
Hold
I'm calling
on.
you.
A swimming bear guy. Do you mean an otter?
Yes.
It's an otter. A swimming bear guy. I love it. So every time you call me during a tournament, a freaking otter pops up and you think it's a swimming bear guy. Jocelyn is obviously the star of our show. She's got the experience in women's hockey all the time. She's got a fabulous personality that's really going to draw people in, and Jossie wants to change the way our viewers view, consume, and appreciate women's hockey. We also have Kayla Jo Franz behind the computer. She makes everything go, and she is also a massive women's hockey fan. I am Peter Odney. I am simply here to...
Because nobody wants.
Because nobody else wants to do
Talk
it.
about
Peter
women's
is
hockey.
here because he's a really, really good podcast host, and
Yes.
he's also strongly values women's hockey.
I was
Yes,
also
I do appreciate
available
that
on
so
Wednesdays
much.
at 3.
Well,
we
Peter
I'm
is like
excited.
the biggest girls' high school hockey fan you'll ever meet.
Yes,
He's
I
trying to be humble. So
Where's my
that's why
little-
he's on
my
the
little
podcast.
cowboy hat?
Yeah.
In
Yeah.
any case, we do hope to see everybody back here once a week. The Women's Hockey Pod, working title, but the Women's Hockey Pod, we're going to be highlighting women's hockey in the state of Minnesota, ages 18 and up, every week with former Miss Hockey finalists Jocelyn Cooks, and I am Peter Odney, behind the cameras, Kayla Franz. We'll see you next week.